When I asked Jeff how much page I should write for this, he said 5, and I forgot to ask him what was the font size. So I use a really small font size, so this one's going to be long. Okay. Srinivasa Shastrigal. The traffic signal turned red, and Srinivasa Shastrigal, a learned Pandit of the Vedas, stopped his TVS 50 just before the stop line. Srinivasan was wearing his dhoti in the traditional style and had knotted his well-oiled and long tuft at the nape of his neck. His gunny bag hung in front of him and had within it all the materials needed in his line of work. There was a pleasant smile hovering around his lips as he watched the signal turn green. The one thing that brings this pleasant smile on his face is the thought of food. He even remembers people based on what he had eaten in their house. Srinivasan had a good memory of each traditional and non-traditional food prepared in each and every household that he frequented by way of his profession. Srinivasan thrived in food, especially those that are heavier on fatty and unhealthy side. Even during his childhood, he had reveled in his mother's expertise in Brahmin cuisine. He was given large servings of the main dishes, extra spoons of the clarified butter, and first to be offered the special desserts. So it was quite natural that he picked a profession at a very early age which would be in keeping with his interest in food. For be it a happy occasion or a sad one, all religious celebration in a Brahmin household was tied with food. The head priest who performs the ritual is fed to his heart's content. There was a strong belief that a pleased Pandit was inversely proportional to a pleased God or a satisfied departed soul. Nothing could be more appealing to him than this. He understood that if his desire for varied range of food is to be fulfilled, then he should master the scriptures and the ritualistic practices. Food became a motivator for his studies, egging his need to master the scriptures. He was anxious to complete his course in the Veda Pathashala, a school for studying scriptures, to begin his own practice as the head priest. When he began his profession as an apprentice under the tutelage of his teacher, Jayarama Ganabadigal, a stalwart of Vedic learning, he was greatly excited. Being a young man with clear and impeccable diction of Sanskrit verse, soon he became a person most sought after, which in turn meant increase and invitation to have food at the client's place. Once his teacher passed away, all his clients approached Srinivasan to take over the responsibility of their spiritual karma. 5 years had passed since he had taken over his teacher's client, and in that time he had also changed very remarkably. From a thin, greedy man, now he looked plump and obese. Srinivasan reached his client's house and was parking his TVS 50 on the driveway when Raghavan Tatachari greeted him from the main door. "Welcome, Srinivasan. Thank you for coming in early." Srinivasan entered and he was immediately offered oil and some shikakai, homemade shampoo powder. He took them and quickly finished his ablutions and wore the new dhoti and upper garment offered to him. A separate space in the living room was made for the celebratory invocation prayers to take place. Once he had sat down on the low wooden platform, he commenced issuing orders for the various material required for the ritual. The strong smell of fresh oil being heated for the crispy vada, a savory snack shaped like a donut and made from lentils, came wafting down the living room, disturbing his thought. Srinivasan twisted his wrist to note the time on his watch. Surely lunch will be a long way from now, thought Srinivasan, a little unhappily. Raghavan thought that he was noting whether the auspicious time had arrived. He asked with reverence, "Is it the right time to begin?" Srinivasan smiled and nodded his agreement, while on the sly he was trying to see what was happening in the kitchen. The lady of the house, Janaki Raghavan, hadn't served him the juice before he begins the puja. He found that he was craving to wet his throat. Eventually he understood that he would have to voice his need when the family was not taking a hint for the juice. In an instant there was a lot starter in the kitchen, and a freshly squeezed orange juice with palm sugar and honey for sweetening was offered to him. Srinivasan slurped the juice, relishing the tangy taste on his taste bud. The puja commenced with Srinivasan putting up a great show. All rituals were performed with the right amount of religiosity, thought the head of the family. But Srinivasan was the one who knew that he had fast forward through some of the couplets and surreptitiously quickened the performance as best as he could. During the entire process, his mind kept wandering at the different smell wafting from the kitchen. He was mentally smacking his lips, anticipating of a large serving of the choicest food. It was time to lay the disposable environment-friendly plantain leaves on the floor in a space created by the industry's family members. The men folks and Srinivasan were the first batch to eat the piping hot food. Srinivasan relished the main course of sambar, rasam, dessert, and curd rice, along with 8 different side dishes, 2 salads, 5 varieties of mixed rice, 3 kinds of pickle. Srinivasan enjoyed a generous helping of the food and kept eating as if he had been without food all his life. It felt like a contest to find who would give up in the end in the marathon of serving food and consuming food. Srinivasan won hands down when he kept asking for more dessert than that was actually available. The 2 cooks, especially recruited for helping Janaki with the preparation of the food, whispered among themselves, marveling at his appetite. Janaki would shush them whenever she returned to the kitchen for another dish to serve Srinivasan. When the used disposable plates had been cleared and the men folks moved towards the veranda to enjoy their mouth freshener, Srinivasan was mellowed by the food that was served to him. As the discussion began ranging from scriptural definitions to the modern-day politics, Srinivasan shared his opinion. As the time neared for him to leave, he goes into the house and asks Janaki to pack him some of his favorite dish so he could relish it when he felt hungry in the evening. Janaki, eager to please him, returned with varied-sized packets for him to take along with him. One thing that a Brahmin household fears is to displease a learned pandit of the Vedas, so they would go to any extreme to please them, and knowing this, Srinivasan made good use of it for his purpose. Srinivasan left Raghavan's house to go to Saidapet where Muralidharan Sheshashayi, another of his clients, was conducting his father's death anniversary. Srinivasan had text messaged him about joining him before the food was served. He had sent one of his assistants to conduct the ritual connected with the death anniversary with instruction to postpone lunch until he joined them later in the day. He entered the flat on the 3rd floor. The living room was cleared and the veranda was crammed with all the furniture shifted from the living room. The plantain leaves adorned the floor and the cook was serving the food on the leaves. Muralidharan said, there you are. I thought you might not be able to make it today. Srinivasan replied, how could I miss your father's death anniversary? He was the one who had helped me get my TVS victory. Srinivasan joined the group seated down to have food. He was considered as the representative of Muralidharan's dead father. The cook served him with great respect on the prescribed food. The cook had made the food without adding any of the regular seasoning. The seasoning that she had used for cooking that day's meal was completely powdered black pepper and black sesame seeds. For Srinivasan, both food for the dead people and food for the living gods were the same. The rich households where he frequented are able to afford the best food to please the pandits. Srinivasan ate another round of food made in remembrance of the dead family member. He kept asking for many rounds of beef, tomato and tamarind soup. In this past 5 years, Srinivasan has been committing to 2 or more religious rituals in a day. That being the case, without being aware of it, he had become so plump and very rich. His profession did require him to pay taxes to the government. Given his current physical state, sometimes Srinivasan would struggle to even climb up a small flight of stairs. But those hardships were nothing compared to the treat that waited him on the disposable plantain leaf. There were days when he would attend a death anniversary program first if the household was wealthy and had food that would tickle his palate with intense pleasure. He did not care if the scriptures prevented him from performing puja after performing a death anniversary ritual. All that mattered to him was the food that was placed before him. Surely when Yama, the god of death, would be knocking on his door, Srinivasan might be busy relishing food that are heavy with clarified butter and hardened cane sugar. Thank you.